What if I told you you could make $100,000 this year with very minimal effort? Seems almost too good to be true. Well, guess what? It is. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about 7 steps that you can do to not only create wealth, but to become rich as an individual. Now, majority of Americans are looking to be wealthy and really putting their efforts in this specific area, breaking down the wealth building steps and understanding that it can play a very significant role in being wealthy, even on a very low or average income when it comes to these 7 specific things. Now, the first one, adopting the mentality of a wealthy person. So, what exactly does this mean? When you think about building wealth, you are accumulating assets. You're looking at things, and really what it means, you're not throwing money away. You know the value of money. You know that money is equivalent to time. The more money that you have, the more time you can actually get back. And it's almost becoming frugal. Now, for me personally, it was about 10 years ago that I really realized this, and going in and making sure that my money, things that I'm buying have value, that they have a value add to me. It is not about the egos. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's not about the lifestyle creep. It is about things that are going to add really value and true value to my life itself, which for me personally, having a family is huge when it comes to being able to spend that time. Now, the second one we look at, eliminating all of the bad debt. Now, when we talk about bad debt, this is anything that is probably north of 20%. We know credit cards are what is going to fall in this. When it comes to bad debt, it takes away your power, it takes away your wealth, it takes away really the ability to get rich, not only in the time aspect, but also in the money aspect. When you look at all of your debt, just take the bad debt, add up what you're paying in interest. A lot of people need to physically see it, need to see it written down, a piece of paper, a sticky note, whatever it is, seeing exactly the number that they're paying in debt. For a lot of people can be very eye-opening. Then you can start searching for additional ways through budgeting or through your spending plan to make adjustments to cut that debt down. Every dollar you're not spending to interest, you have the opportunity cost to put that elsewhere. When you think of the repayment, it might take a little bit to get rid of the bad debt, but once it's gone, once that credit card is eliminated, you have the ability to essentially put the money elsewhere. Now, when we think about the elimination of credit cards, 2 really big things that we look at. One, the methodology behind the way that you pay it. You could use the debt avalanche, you could use the debt snowball. Personally, I recommend the debt avalanche to get rid of that bad debt. And the second one is the consolidation or the balance transfer method, which of course is going to allow you to pay less interest over the life of that bad debt, making it essentially go away faster. Now, the only caveat to this and the trick is you cannot accumulate new debt. I say this because I see it all the time, where if you have $20,000 in debt, you refinance it, 3 to 5 years later, you have another $20,000 in debt, so on and so forth. The debt snowball continues to go over and over and over again. And unfortunately, when you're paying all of this interest, you are not building any assets. You are just increasing the liabilities because the money is going out month after month after month, even year after year. The third one we look at is utilization of good debt. Now, when we say good debt, this is something low cost financing. This could be a long living asset like a house. When we start thinking of the utilization of good debt, it is what is going to build your assets. When we look at vehicles, we know they are the biggest depreciating asset that we have in the United States. And of course, it is classified as bad debt. Even though there's a good interest rate, it is going to be a depreciation, meaning that if you buy a car today, you use it as your regular everyday car, you're putting miles on it, it's getting older, the depreciation of that is going astronomical. Even looking at some of the new vehicles, they can depreciate up to 20% when you're driving it off the lot. When you look at the price tag, they're running about $62,000 is the average price. Driving it off the lot, you are losing 20% of that value up front. Now, again, getting back to the good debt in step number 3, thinking about the good debt such as a mortgage. I know a lot of people might not be in a place to buy a mortgage, but when you think of the value of a home, traditionally short of 2007, 2008, housing market crisis, the mortgage value has went up. So as you're paying your balance down, and this is where it becomes an asset, and it only remains an asset if you're not borrowing against it. So what do I mean by that? When you think of good debt in a house, taking out a 15-year mortgage, even if you have to take a 30-year mortgage, it might mean that you overbought a little bit in the house. but as you're continuing to make those payments, paying down the principal, you are building an asset over an extended amount of time, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it is. Now, this is where it turns your good debt or your asset of having a home into a liability is when you do the refinance. When you get 10 years in, so you start a 30-year mortgage, you get back to 20 years, then you refinance it, you take it back to 30 years. That is when it really becomes a liability. And the second way it becomes a liability is if you start borrowing against your home. And I know a lot of people this day and age say that is a great way to do it. But when you start taking out the equity that you built in your home as a home equity, whether it's a line of credit, whether it's, an interest-only home equity, you are taking the asset you're building in your house. Think of it kind of similar as a retirement plan. If you start taking and cannibalizing that retirement plan, you're going to have less of a retirement plan. Well, it's the exact same thing when it comes to your house. When you start taking out home equities, when you start borrowing against your house, that asset all of a sudden turns into a liability. Number 4, save, save, save. If you want to get wealthy, if you want to build and really be rich, you have to spend less than you earn. We always talk about the 3 buckets. The first bucket is your income. Second bucket is your liability. The third bucket is whatever you have left after those first 2. Now, of course, the first way with your income, you can increase your income. This might be a side hustle like we do right here on YouTube. And of course, if you like the content that I'm putting out on the channel, definitely consider subscribing. But like I was saying, with a side hustle, you can increase your income, working more hours, working a side hustle, getting some passive income. This could be CDs. This could be investments that are paying dividends. You could build a passive income portfolio. The second bucket, liabilities. When you think of all of your debt, your mortgage, your cars, your payments, all of your liabilities that you have, you can take that bucket. And if there is any way that you can cut out some expenses, if you can go ahead and get some things cheaper for a majority of people, it might take a little bit of time and effort to be disciplined when it comes to the savings, but you can do it. When you look at insurance products, you can usually find them cheaper. Cutting subscription costs. Right now, on average, it's about $215 a month that people are paying in subscriptions. If you can eliminate $50, $100 in subscriptions, that is going to give you the ability to either 1, debt repayment a lot faster, or 2, give you the ability to save and invest that money, which is why we get into number 5, investing in high return assets. Now, you'll notice in this video, we are talking about assets. These are things that are going to go up in value when we start thinking of high yield savings accounts that are going to give you that 5%. When we start thinking of the S&P 500, specifically the VOO that has a 10% average return over an extended amount of time, you are going to grow your money into more money. And then, of course, if that growth is compounded, you are going to see the 8th wonder of the world go to work with the compounding interest that you're getting in these investment accounts, and it can exponentially go there. Now, of course, stocks are very notorious when it comes to short-term gains or losses. The track record. That is the reason why personally I only invest in ETFs, and I only invest really in a handful of ETFs. And really my 3 ETF portfolio, a great place to start. Even if you're looking at the S&P 500, thinking of Warren Buffett philosophy, he says you should invest in 2 and only 2 ETFs, one of those being the S&P 500, the second one being the bonds, which again, bonds are kind of questionable, but when it comes to having billions of dollars like he does, I guess the bonds can have a pretty good return. Number 6, investing regularly. Now this, of course, is not just dumping your money into the market. It is setting up a very specific portfolio and doing dollar cost averaging. That is one of the biggest things where if you're looking at investing regularly, whether it's in a 401k plan or if it's an IRA or a traditional brokerage account, dollar cost averaging helps you reduce the risk of the investment. And of course, it is not about timing the market. It is about the time that you are in the market. When we think of your investing time frame, we are looking at 5+ years. And let's say, for instance, out of that second bucket with your liabilities, you cut out $100. You have an extra $100 to spend. Putting $100 into an account that just contains the S&P 500, so one single ETF in its entirety, will be very, very beneficial for you. And of course, it is going to grow over time. And the final one we look at is really a preference depending on you and your investment style. This is working with a financial advisor to help you keep on track. So a lot of people don't want to take my advice. They don't want to do ETFs. They want to do stocks. They want to do bonds. When you look at the ability to do your own research, and I really, really recommend, I am not a financial advisor, do your own research when it comes to investing. But if you do not want to put the time and effort into understanding the stock market, understanding ETFs, understanding what you're buying, what you're investing in, this is the place where you hire a financial advisor. Now, majority of financial advisors do incredibly well. It's a very extensive interview process. Your goals and plans kind of have to align with them. You also have to make sure that they're not selling you products and services that are super beneficial to them or that are not beneficial to you at all. And of course, it does come with a cost, usually 1% of your portfolio every single year. Now, remember, this means 1% if your portfolio is doing 20%, great. They're still getting their 1%, leaving you the remaining 19. If the market is down 20%, they are still getting their 1%, regardless of what it is. Now, of course, a lot of investors have really bailed out when times were tough, derailing their wealth building plan. And of course, it gets very, very dicey sometimes, like we've seen in 2022, but sticking and really the bottom line to your investment plan, making sure you know exactly that you're buying assets, how you're going to get rich, and exactly how you're going to be wealthy. Very, very easy to talk about and go through, sometimes very difficult to go ahead and follow. But guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next video.